Hello, bonjour, and welcome to the Don't Wastewater podcast. I'm your host, Antoine Walter, and for this very first episode, I'm honored to welcome Laurent de FRANCESCHI as my guest today. Laurent is head of applications at SUEZ Water Technology and Solutions, and he's dealing with wastewater treatment since 1992, as he will explain you in a minute. In our deep dive, Laurent will guide us through the 6 steps to solve a wastewater riddle. Starting with a water sample, defining the treatment goals, making a good use of historical data, testing the water, teaming up to upscale, and above all, filling everything with passion. Let's wait no more, I'll climb the Zurichberg and meet Laurent de FRANCESCHI there during the jingle.
You're listening to Don't Waste Water, the podcast that helps water professionals to improve their wastewater treatment, optimize their operation costs, and keep up with the latest market trends. This podcast is brought to you by GF Piping Systems. As a leading supplier of piping systems made of plastics and metal, GF Piping Systems is the global expert for the safe and reliable transportation of water, chemicals, and gas. For more information, visit gfps.com.
Hi Laurent, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being my first guest.
Hi Antoine, I'm very pleased to.
So maybe we can start with a postcard. We are just sitting in a restaurant on the Zurichberg, which is maybe the nicest place you can find in Switzerland. So we are having a good time. I hope our listeners will have a good time as well.
I hope too.
So maybe let's start by introducing yourself. You've been a wastewater professional for years. I'm not saying decades because I'm a gentleman, don't want to insult you. So what sets you apart in this world of wastewater?
So yes, you are talking about decades. I would say it's almost 3 decades now. So I'm not so young anymore in this field, but always still passionate, I would say, by this job. And I started within SUEZ now since almost 30 years, also 1992. First, my background was wastewater treatment, I would say. Then I switched to water treatment in general, with still a huge expertise in wastewater treatment. And then I joined here Ozonia since now 4 years, working as head of application of ozone and AOP, which is also one important topic. And yes, still passion to find solution for water treatment in general.
So you mentioned you're the head of applications. What's exactly behind this term of applications?
So application, basically, it's how to implement ozone or AOP solution. Just short definition about AOP, advanced oxidation processes, which are usually not well known. And the idea is really to develop new application to bring solution to our customers. Let's say we are really upstream, trying to find a solution for them, and also assessing the technical feasibility of these technologies.
And in that field, what's your secret sauce? What makes you really different from your competition? If there is any competition,
yes,
maybe you're so good, there's no competition.
I think there is competition in all fields, but okay, in this one also. What makes the difference, I would say, here is that we still keep in Zurich, in Dübendorf to be exact, we still keep a lab, an AOP lab. I would say it's the things that make us strong there, because it's a reliable lab. We have also very good professional and experts here, and we also have all the other people, I would say, not really directly linked to application, but more having an expertise, I would say, in research or in process, ozone process, I would say in general, present in Dübendorf. So we are linked. We are not alone, and we have a reliable lab. Yes. And also pilots.
So the secret sauce is the lab and the people which are working around in the lab.
The tools and the people. I would say people first, for sure.
Very interesting. So what would be a project you are working on right now, so that we get a bit of an understanding of what's your daily life?
Yes. So as I mentioned previously, we are trying to find new applications. So this goes through partnership with different customer. Can be an industrial one, can be also a partnership with an academic, for example, but usually with industrial one, or even with internal, I would say, customer within SUEZ Group, because SUEZ Group, as you know, is a big galaxy. We are currently working on one project. This project is almost finished, by the way, which is more a research project, a study around groundwater treatment, polluted groundwater treatment.
Can you tell us a bit more about it, or is it top secret?
It's difficult to talk about a new project, etc. But what I would say is the general idea of this study is to assess different technologies, ozone-based, most of them, but not only.
That's interesting, because I think that this gives me a smooth transition to the heart of what we will be discussing today. Mm-hmm. And actually, I call that the water riddle. You have a customer coming, he has a problem with his water and he has no clue how to treat it. And what I would like to understand with you is, what's your process starting from this water up to the point where you solve this problem and actually treat it? So what would be the start? What's the initial action you take if, let's say, I'm one of your customers and I have a weird water that I would like to treat?
First of all, I would say the first thing is to really clarify what is your need. Because usually people think about ozone. There is something which is already done in terms of assessment prior to come to us. But in general, we really need to find out what's the goal. And usually this starts by a technical feasibility, I would say. Can ozone solve your problem, or AOP, for example? So this is the first start, I would say. And this usually starts by lab testing.
So you would take samples of my water, or?
Yes. Basically, we need samples from your water. And as usually mentioned, we need representative samples from your water. And this is not obvious, that the water quality can change, is not always constant. And the idea is really to take the one which is the most representative of, I would say, the future operation condition.
So you take some samples, you make a suitability test, and that is going to tell you if you can help me or not. To understand it right?
Exactly. The suitability test, as you mentioned, is something which will give us already some answers. Yes, can we reach the goal in terms of removal rate? Can we reach the goal in terms of, for example, concentration to achieve? Can we reach the goal also, I would say, in terms of dosage? Does it make sense to bring so much ozone, or is it okay? These are the first answer, I would say, we can give with this first test we do generally.
So that means you make a kind of economical assessment. If the dosage would be that high that it would cost really too much, you say, yes, technically that's feasible, but doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Testing, as I mentioned, is some kind of first step, but it's obvious that before testing, we check within our internal database, within all the results we got from the prior test we did, if we have something similar in terms of water matrix, if we have something similar in terms of dosage or things like that. We also have a database, I would say, more related to the different compounds which can react or not with ozone, and we can already give some kind of first answer to this. If the dosage is really too high, we discuss the point, does it make sense to go for testing?
And with all your experience, are you still surprised by water that might still work or react when you would think it would not? Or the other way around, you thought it would be just easy to treat and it turns out it's not that easy?
I'm still surprised. I think even our expert is surprised. So if he is surprised, I am surprised too, I would say. Yes, we still have, water matrix where we think that ozone is not a solution, and yes, for some reasons it works. So
we live in an industry where at the end of the day the water decides.
somehow the water decides, and we live in an industry or in a technology where not everything is well known right now.
So let's go a bit further in the process. So you've established that you can treat it and that it would make sense economically. Now, what's the next step?
So usually the next step is to find out within the group, within SUEZ group, people who will be able to answer regarding the solution. Sometimes it's people from WTS, so Water Technology and Solution, can be also people integrator within SUEZ group, such as SUEZ Treatment Infrastructure. If not, then we have also some partnership with, I would say, external company when it's a dedicated market or specific market. Sometimes we work also with EPC engineering companies, which provide, I would say, the general process, and we bring ozone solution in this case, or AOP solution.
So you are the process owner, and they will be building it. How does it work? Who does what?
There are several possibilities. Usually we try to bring a turnkey solution, but sometimes we can be even not process owner. The EPC, the engineering company, can be the process owner in some cases. So we, in this case, we bring the ozone solution, I would say. The ozone product, sorry.
So if I try to make a cooking analogy, you found out the recipe to treat that water. And sometimes within SUEZ, someone is going to be the cook as well. So everything comes from SUEZ. Or sometimes this cook can be external and you will be giving the recipe to the cook. Is that the right way to translate it?
Could be like this, yes. Sometimes, we have also partnership with industrial companies which are working on a topic since, I would say, a long time, which already started to do some tests, etc., to work with ozone, but still they are limited in terms of tools, in terms of, I would say, assets in general. So they come to us to confirm some tests, to optimize some tests. In this case, for sure, they're process owner.
So your role is a bit a consultant role for the customer. You consult him on how his process should work. How do you interact if there's already a consultant on the customer side? So then the customer has hired his own consultant, which might have his own ideas, and then you find out something on the process which might not be aligned with the consultant's ideas. So now you have multiple cooks around the same table. How does that come into music?
I would even add some other players, because usually when we do some work, as we are more, I would say, on the research side, we also work with internal salespeople from purification and disinfection. So basically, we are several players around the table, and this for sure needs discussion to align us. But usually this works quite well, I would say. We never faced any issue due to the fact that we had to change a little bit our way of thinking regarding ozone application, for example.
We've talked about the lab testing. Do you also do pilot studies? Sometimes maybe pilot in the field? Or when would you do a pilot and when would you not do a pilot?
Yes, we do piloting. We do piloting sometimes really to, I would say, to find out if the solution is reliable. Because as you know, as I mentioned, we need to have, I would say, a representative water matrix. Sometimes water matrix, I would say even always, water matrix is quite varying. So this is not obvious and can bring some issues in operation. And in this case, we can do piloting to check a little bit what are the limits, I would say, where there is an issue, if we can find out a solution to this issue. Piloting is closer to real operation conditions. So it helps also the customer to be familiar with ozone, because as you probably know, ozone is a dangerous gas, and sometimes people are a little bit afraid of implementation of ozone within their plant.
So it's kind of a way to teach them what it would be in the future to have an ozone plant, because they already have a small version of it.
Exactly, a small scale. This is one part, as you mentioned, but we can also do sometimes piloting strictly, just as some kind of research, some studies, specific studies. We did recently a study which aimed to combine, I would say, ozone and activated carbon in the field of micropollutant treatment in Switzerland.
Talking about combinations, one of the future episodes of that podcast will feature one expert of advanced oxidation processes, and I know that he's telling that this is the future, that advanced oxidation processes are the future for many reasons, and for the ones that want to know the full rationale behind it, I only can encourage you to listen to the episode where he will be featured. But you are also one of the experts in that field of advanced oxidation processes. What would be your take on these AOPs?
I would say that it's the future for sure, because as you may know, micropollutant is quite a huge concern. I would say it's a real concern, and we need to treat them, for example, in wastewater, and we will have more and more difficult compounds to treat. So yes, it's the future, advanced oxidation, but I'm strongly convinced it's the future by combination also with biological process. Why? Because basically by breaking down some kind of big molecules which are difficult, which are toxic, difficult to treat by a bio, you produce usually systematically compounds which are easy to be removed by a bio. So in this case, it really makes sense to combine ozone plus bio, or advanced oxidation process in general, plus a biology. It's a combination which already exists in drinking water since decades.
You mentioned that SUEZ wants to do the turnkey. So is that really the focus of SUEZ, to deliver the large-scale solution based on your research, or is it sometimes preferable for SUEZ to be in a second row and saying, we are the process owner, we bring the material, the equipment, but someone else is going to be assembling and taking the responsibility to make it work in the field?
I think it's really depending. It's really case by case. In sometimes when we are talking about municipal market, SUEZ is quite well implemented in this market and is a major player. So in this case, I'm convinced we will bring the solution, the turnkey solution, and not only providing one part of the process, but all the water treatment process. In some cases, in some markets, I would say, especially in industrial markets, you have really already strong players in place. And there, it's opportunistic, I think, for both of us, for the partners to work with them, not bringing the turnkey solution, to work with them as process provider. And we provide part of the solution, I would say. We provide also our ozone expertise in this case. I think in some markets such as aquaculture or other industrial markets such as electronics in some cases, yeah.
So in those cases, SUEZ WTS acts as an OEM or a small EPC rather than the supplier of the full package? Yes.
But it's really case by case. It depends on the market also, yeah.
I think it's kind of the agility of being such a big group. You can sometimes decide not to be the big boy, but rather a smaller player because it's more suited to the application.
Exactly. This is really some kind of flexibility you need to have.
In your previous role, previous life, I might say so, you were more on the operation side of the wastewater treatment plant. And if I recall right, the plants where you were active used to be kind of innovation labs for SUEZ. So you were working on places where there was always an innovative treatment, whether tested or just implemented. As an operator or as a technical leader, isn't it a challenge to be on a field which is always moving like that? Wouldn't it be more a comfort to say, I have my usual treatment working for years and I just maintain it?
We always need to have challenges. We always need to find new solutions to optimize. We are always moving forward in this path, I would say. You cannot stay as it is. And I think I saw some kind of changement in the paradigm of treating wastewater. Basically, in the 90s, when we were talking about treating wastewater, the idea was to put energy, was to put efforts, was to put technology to treat water. Since 2 decades now, I think we are more focused on how to produce energy from wastewater, bringing added value basically to wastewater, not thinking only we have to bring energy to treat the water, but how what is in the water can bring energy. So this is, I would say, a first step, but not only. Then the way we think about wastewater now is really, is there within the wastewater something that we can recover that really brings added value?
What could be example of that? Is it resource recovery of phosphorus or nitrogen, or is it rather biogas, or what do you think?
So biogas is the first one. Clearly, this is methanization is really now well implemented, or starts to become well implemented, and this is the first step, I would say. But in general, yet it's reduction of sludge in wastewater. It's also recovery of some substances, as you mentioned. Phosphorus is one of them. Sometimes it's production of biogas to produce biomethane, which can be reintroduced in the gas network. So this is also a solution, much more interesting, I would say, even than only digestion and energy production behind. And yes, recovery of resources is really something which is important. We even face this type of issues with ozone or AOP in some industrial processes. People are trying to use ozone, let's say, oxidative properties of ozone to recover some components, just in order to not to waste their product.
I often hear that our industry is pretty conservative. And still, when listening to you, it sounds to me that they are also innovative and moving people in that industry. So what would you say is the share of people like you, which are open-minded, and other people that might be a little bit more, I mean, everybody likes to have his daily routine, but maybe a bit too much.
Within water treatment, people are quite passionate, but I think passion is also something you can communicate to people. This is important. Also, sometimes people can be in some kind of routines, but can also be at the same time in routines and passionate by what they're doing. I would say this is my main purpose, to bring life, I would say, in the daily work.
And I think that's, again, a smooth transition. I think it rounds off our heart of the subject today. And if it's fine with you, I would propose you to switch to the rapid fire questions.
Okay.
It's time for the rapid fire questions.
The way it works is it's the same set of questions which I'm asking to all the people which are attending the podcast. And I think it's interesting to get to understand the differences between the answers of various people. I'll try to keep the question short. So if you can try to keep the answer short, but of course, if there's something really interesting to say, the mic is still open to you. Should we start?
Let's go.
What is the most exciting project you've been working on, and why?
All.
That was really short, but so every project is.
Yeah, I think yes, every project are exciting. Honestly, some projects more than others. Basically, currently we are working on one project which aims to find out solution by combination of technology, as I mentioned, for polluted groundwater. This is really interesting. Where I think we have really an added value is project where ozone is applied as part of an industrial process, and I will stop because it's short answer.
What's your favorite part about your current job?
Teamwork and finding new solution with the team. Yes, this is something which is very important. By teamwork, I would even enlarge or widen the not only the internal team, but also, let's say, in general, people with whom we are in contact to develop new solutions.
So like the project team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is.
What is the trend to watch for in the water industry?
In the water industry, the top trend, I would say, it's this changement of paradigm I mentioned, which aims to see water not as waste, wastewater not as waste, but really as a value. I think this is a trend for the future. Recover most as possible what is within the wastewater in general.
Let me deviate from my script because it's interesting what you say. Do you think it's something for the future, or is it already happening that we see the wastewater as a resource and not as a waste?
Yeah, it's already happening for sure. And then there will be some kind of threshold where you can be sure at a moment that recovering will be interesting. Yes, this is sure.
I go back to the script.
Yeah.
What is the thing you care the most when you design a new project or process or product? And what is the thing you care the less?
The thing I care the most is, I would say, the reliability, the general reliability of the process, taking into consideration some potential variation. I would say this is the first thing, bringing a solution which is reliable. Yeah. But I care the less, difficult to say.
Maybe you care about everything, so.
Yeah. What I care the more, but the less I don't know, honestly.
Do you have sources to recommend if we want to keep up with the latest trends, research, magazines, blogs, podcasts?
There are several sources where you can find different information related to ozone. For sure, we have an international ozone association with, I would say, several places where you can find information related to ozone. There is also EWA, so
International Water Association.
Exactly, International Water Association, where you can also find lots of information relative to our technologies. You can find quite interesting information within the Micropole VSA platform in Switzerland.
So that's a lot of sources that we can browse to get some information. Let me end up with my last question. Would you have someone that you would recommend that we should invite on that podcast?
I would recommend Wim Oudenaardt. Wim is, I would say, he's head of a young company which provides modeling modeling in general in wastewater, I would say.
Very interesting. So I'll make sure that we extend an invitation to Wim. Thank you, Laurent. If people have questions after our episode, where can they contact you?
I think the easiest is to contact us by email, I would say. Yes.
Okay, so I'll put the contact email in the episode notes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Don't Waste Water. This podcast was brought to you by GF Piping Systems. Loved this episode? Head over to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. See you next time.